What are you doing out here? You're gonna love it. It's this terrible cheat.
Welcome back to Movie Flix. Today we are going to recap 2014 horror thriller movie titled The Voices. Jerry, a young man working at a Milton bathtub factory, pursues his crush with the help of his talking dog and cat. However, things change when she stands him up on a date. But before we begin, please consider subscribing to our channel. Now, without wasting any further time, let's begin, shall we? Our story begins with a man named Jerry working for a company called Milton Fixtures, and his boss Dennis appears to be delighted with his performance. As a result, he assigns him with the responsibility of organizing a barbecue for all of the other employees. Jerry, on the other hand, agrees after he discovers that Fiona, his accounting co-worker, will assist him with the planning. The following day at work, Dennis convinces a conference with all of the planners to split the chores evenly. Fiona rushes to Jerry after the meeting to ask him a question about their sound system. Jerry's attraction to her grown stronger as he mesmerized. Jerry visits with his therapist a few days later to discuss how he is progressing in his life. Jerry, it turns out, is taking medicine for his illness. He then tells her that he likes Fiona, but he is worried she will hate him when she finds out who he is. She assures him, though, that he should not judge her before getting to know her. Jerry is having the time of his life with Fiona at the barbecue. When he returns home, he hears his dog questioning him after having sex with her. This is certainly a result of him not taking his medication despite his cat's continued skepticism. Jerry seems unaffected by his statements. Jerry has a newly cherry attitude at work because he is still buzzed from BBQ party. When he sees Fiona again, he sees a little shy about him. Fortunately, her co-worker Lisa invites them both to join her for a few drinks after work. Apparently, he finds out that Fiona's previous engagement while they are in the bar. Jerry insists on driving Fiona home once the night is done and tries to make other plans with her. Fiona, on the other hand, does not appear to be really interested in him. Jerry will travel to the accounting floor later this week to pick up Fiona on the date. Unfortunately, he discovers that she has departed early, but as soon as he walks away, Fiona emerges from behind the desk. She is actually hiding from him because she does not want to go out. As a result, Jerry goes to a restaurant by himself while Fiona goes out with her companions. When Fiona's car breaks down in the middle of the rain, she notices Jerry driving by in his car. Jerry, of course, offers her to give a lift. Fiona, on the other hand, continues to lure him in. Surprisingly, Jerry is so preoccupied on Fiona that he runs over a deer. While he hears the deer plead him to kill him so he won't have to suffer, Fiona stares in horror as Jerry cuts his throat, unaware that he is hearing voices. As a result, Fiona attempts to flee from him, but Jerry kills her by landing on top of her with his knife. Jerry sobs at home after inadvertently killing Fiona. Although his dog tries to help him cope up with this plan, his cat informs him that he will be gone for good if he does not get rid of the body. So the next morning, Jerry does not precisely what his cat and instruct him to do, but he keeps it in the back of his trunk. Jerry next visits his psychiatrist for an examination. When he arrives home, however, he begins disposing of Fiona's body, keeping only her head in the freezer. Jerry then chooses to take his medicines in order to regain control of himself. As soon as he begins to work, he discovers that he no longer hears the voices. Jerry's medicine wears off the next morning, allowing him to communicate with Fiona's head once more. As a result, Fiona asks him if he might bring her a buddy because she is lonely in the fridge. Despite his reservations at first, she persuades him. When Jerry gets to work, his employer begins to grill him about seeing Fiona. Jerry predictably denies seeing her. Jerry is watching TV and his pet later that night, which his cat begs him to murder another woman. Jerry is split between his two pets, Despite his dog's attempt to talk him out of it, Jerry tries to chat with Lisa about having drinks after her shift ends at work, and Lisa seems to like the idea. As a result, they share a few drinks while discussing their dogs. Lisa is so nervous, she ends up asking him if he wants to return to her apartment. Clearly, he agrees. Jerry, on the other hand, brings her to his childhood home in the woods while they are in his truck. Jerry then recalls as soon as he enters the house that his mother was also psychotic and that he had ended her suffering so she would not be locked away. Lisa kisses him in an attempt to console him. As a result, Jerry brings her home to make love to her. Jerry was overjoyed the next morning after spending the night with Lisa. He has the impression that he's becoming attached to her, and she has the same impression. As a result, he plantedly disagrees the plan to murder her. Everything is going smoothly until he watches the news after his shift and learns that police have discovered the remains of Fiona's body. Spiraling, Jerry seeks guidance from his dog and Fiona's severed skull until he discovers Lisa knocking on his door, offering him handmade pastries. Jerry, who is nervous, maintains as much composure as he can around her. He soon finds, however, that he has locked himself out of the apartment. So, as he is entering through his fire exit, Lisa picks up the lock with a bobby pin. Unfortunately, when she walks in, there is blood all over the place and Fiona's covered head is on the table. As a result, Jerry begins to cry as he knows what must he do. Lisa, terrified, flees to his bedroom to seek refuge. He then assures her that he would not harm her if she can keep his secret. Lisa apparently tries to flee the room, which causes Jerry to shove her against his bed frame, causing her skull to split open. Jerry finally sets Lisa's chopped head next to Fiona's. Jerry's co-worker discovers out this next morning that Lisa isn't showing up as well. They both learn that Jerry murdered off his mother years ago. So one of the accounting women, Allison, comes up to his place. Jerry again places her severed head in the fridge with the other woman. Jerry's dog, disgusted by his acts, informs him that he is now entirely evil. Jerry, enraged, yells at all of the voices to stop talking. As a result, Jerry seeks assistance from his psychiatrist. She, on the other hand, dismisses it as annoyance. As long as he didn't kill anyone, Jerry then informs her that he did. The lady, terrified, tells him to tell her everything that has transpired. Nonetheless, he notices her dialing 911. As he is looking away, Jerry, terrified, decides that he must kill her, since she will inform the authorities one way or the other. He then tries her up and drags her into the woods. Jerry begins talking about his background and how it has terrified him in the woods. She informs him nervously that everyone has similar ideas, but in his case they manifested as voices. She then tells him that it is not required of him, that he needs to do it what they say. Jerry, calmer, decides to take her home with him because he needs to feed his dog. Jerry's co-workers then show up at his residence to find out that Allison hasn't returned from meeting. Unfortunately, one of his co-workers discovers Allison's automobile nearby, so he enters Jerry's residence only to exit seconds later, vomiting from the stench of decomposing remains. As a result, when Jerry returns home with his psychiatrist restrained, he discovers that his dog have vanished after his employee let them out. He does, however, find his cat only to hear the cop's siren outside his house. Jerry then chooses to flee fast through the vents in his bathroom. When the cops try to chase him down the vents, he hits a gas pipe and causes the entire home to explode. Jerry then watches his house burn while being torn between staying with his blazing house and fleeing the cops by his dogs. Jerry eventually decides to heed his dog's advice and he dies of illness. Jerry eventually finds himself in the blank white setting with his parents and all of the ladies he's murdered. However, no one seems to hold grudge against him because they appear to forgive him for what he has done. And this is where the movie concludes. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, until next time.